It was a Sunday afternoon, and the sky above seemed heavy, as if it were holding its breath. The scent of grilled meat hung in the air, mingling with the laughter of my husband's family. But beneath the surface of this idyllic scene, a quiet storm had been brewing for months, and I, 29, married for 5 years, stood at the center of it. It had always been there, in the shape of a woman, Marie, my husband's childhood friend, the one he called like a sister. I had tried, with all the patience that love demands, to be understanding of their bond. But every glance, every laugh they shared, felt like the flicker of a distant flame I could neither touch nor extinguish. Marie, 30, was everywhere. She was in our home, on our vacations, in his thoughts, and on his phone, always hovering in the space between us. My husband, 31, dismissed my concerns as though they were the idle musings of a jealous wife. He would shrug, offer a smile that no longer felt warm, and tell me I was overreacting. It was a refrain I had grown tired of hearing, like the hollow echo of footsteps in an empty room. It was my mother-in-law who first gave voice to the quiet rage I had buried. A woman wise beyond her years, she told me I had every right to feel uncomfortable, that boundaries were a necessary part of love. Yet her wisdom was offset by my father-in-law, a man whose fondness for Marie blinded him to the slow unraveling of my marriage. "She's family," he'd say, as though that simple declaration could wash away the doubts, the late nights, the secret glances. Then came the change. My husband, once so steadfast, so predictable in his habits, began to shift. He came home later, his phone clutched like a talisman. I told myself it was work, that I had no reason to doubt him. But doubt is a seed that, once planted, grows roots in every corner of the heart. One evening, as he showered, I found the courage, or perhaps the madness, to search through his phone. And there it was, the truth I had feared, staring back at me from a string of messages that unfolded like a sordid tale. My husband and Marie had been entangled for months. I felt the world collapse around me, but for weeks I said nothing. I wandered through my days in a haze, trying to understand how love, once so certain, could twist into betrayal. My husband, guilty yet unashamed, begged me to stay, to believe that it had all been a mistake. And so I stayed silent, waiting for some revelation that might never come. Then the family barbecue arrived, an event my husband insisted we attend as though nothing had changed, as though we could still wear the mask of happiness. I relented, though the thought of seeing Marie made my skin crawl. She was there, of course, smiling that same familiar smile, as if she hadn't already shattered the fragile bond between us. I felt like a stranger in my own life, watching the world spin around me while I stood still. The day passed in a blur until dinner, when my father-in-law's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Marie will always be part of this family, and you need to get over your insecurities," he said, as if my feelings were nothing more than an inconvenience, a trifling matter to be dismissed. Something inside me snapped. I rose from my seat, my heart pounding in my chest. The words tumbled from my lips before I could stop them. You know what? I would get over it if she wasn't sleeping with my husband. The silence that followed was like the stillness before a storm. Marie's face turned pale, my husband's protests fell on deaf ears, and I, liberated by the truth, spoke of the affair, of the lies, of the months of deceit that had poisoned our marriage. My mother-in-law, God bless her, stood by my side, her fury directed at her son and Marie, her voice rising in defense of my broken heart. But my father-in-law, he who had always defended Marie, always belittled my concerns, had the gall to call me hysterical, to say that affairs happen as though they were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. I left that day, the weight of my words still hanging in the air. I walked away from the barbecue, from the life I had known, and sought refuge in the quiet solace of my mother's house. My husband has been begging me to return ever since, while my father-in-law spreads whispers through the family, painting me as the villain, the one who destroyed the peace. And so I sit here, wondering if I was wrong to expose the affair so publicly. Should I have handled it privately, behind closed doors, as my father-in-law suggested? Or was I right to lay bare the truth, to reclaim my voice after months of silence? I do not know, but I know this: the truth, once spoken, can never be unsaid. And perhaps, in the telling of it, I have freed myself from the chains of a love that had long since withered in the shadows. You are, beyond question, not at fault. After enduring the deceit, the betrayal, and the insidious gaslighting from your father-in-law, it is only natural that you reached a breaking point. For years, you sought to voice your unease, hoping to be heard by those who should have cherished your feelings. Instead, you were met with indifference, cast aside as though your concerns were trivial. That your husband and Marie believed they could carry on their clandestine affair without consequence speaks to a grievous lack of respect, not only for you, but for the sacred bond you had built. Your father-in-law's dismissive words, treating the affair as if it were a trivial mistake, only deepened the wound. It is not simply the betrayal of your husband that you face, but the long-standing erosion of your trust, your dignity, and your rightful place in this family. In that moment of truth, standing before them all, you had every right to speak. You had been silenced for too long. To expose their lies was not merely an act of confrontation. It was the reclaiming of your voice, a voice they had sought to stifle. And for that, you are not to be condemned but applauded. You deserve a love that honors your worth, and in your mother-in-law's steadfast support, you find a glimmer of the justice that has long been denied you.